And to think, this all started with horse armor. Hey everyone, Murphy here, and welcome back to Black Beanie Gaming. On November 14th, 2018, under the leadership of that paragon of internet memedom, Todd "It Just Works" Howard, Bethesda Game Studios released what might be one of the most self-destructive pieces of media this decade, Fallout 76. It isn't hyperbolic to suggest that this game, more than anything released by EA or Activision over the last year, has nearly completely changed the public's perception of its publisher. For example, Anthem was hot garbage, but we know why. In fact, several out there expected it. We know that since EA acquired BioWare, years of shoddy business practices and aggressive mandates have bled the studio of most of its best talent, changing its work environment for the worse. We knew, as BioWare came to learn, that the well of magic had to run dry eventually. All of this was on public display, but not so much with Bethesda. EA and Activision are publicly traded companies, and as such have publicly disclosed conference calls with investors every financial quarter, which allows all of us a glimpse at the inner machinations of these grim, soul-sapping, IP-killing, publishing megaliths. Bethesda Softworks is a private business, and Bethesda Game Studios is therefore closed to prying eyes. We don't know what goes on in there aside from the occasional no-clip documentary or confusing livestream. It's fitting, then, that communication following the disastrous launch of Fallout 76 has been so dismal. They've always been tight-lipped. They've always kept things under wraps or close to the chest. In the past, this worked to their benefit, but not so much when their fan base demands information on a weekly, even daily basis. In the past, the arrival of Todd Howard at any games conference was nearly always met with feverish anticipation. What are they working on? Is it a new Fallout? Elder Scrolls? Something new? Well, for the last 11 months, the build-up to his public appearances have been tarnished by the company's own behavior. Rather than the public demanding news, a mere morsel of information on their next project, instead they're demanding an explanation as to the poor decision-making regarding the last one. The launch and support of Fallout 76 for nearly 6 months after release was an absolute unmitigated disaster, one poor decision precipitating the next, and so on and so forth. Not a single thing went smoothly, be it performance, monetization, collectibles, merch, refunds, or blog posts meant to communicate developer intentions with an irate player base. Look, it's too tedious an exercise to recount the entirety of this absolute gauntlet of lies and ineptitude, so I insist instead that you go watch internet historian's masterful breakdown of the entire tumultuous launch over on his channel. You know, in a way I feel sorry for internet historian. I can't imagine how soul-sapping it must have been to pore over every mishap and gaffe. I bet that deep down, he probably felt like his work was finished. There couldn't possibly be another controversy so disastrous, so head-scratchingly regressive, so poorly conceived and blatantly anti-consumer on the horizon. Could there be? Well, once Bethesda Game Studios managed to stymie the game's hemorrhaging player base, the most incredible thing happened. A community formed. Against all odds and Bethesda's best efforts, some people decided to stick around and continue playing the game. A dedicated group of people emerged to not only support the title, but each other as they traverse the hellish post-war West Virginia of the game's setting, and the crucible that is dealing with a game so conceptually brain-dead. Similar to the communities that to this day sink hundreds of hours into Fallout 3, New Vegas, Skyrim, and Fallout 4, a dedicated group of individuals sees Fallout 76 not as a blight on Bethesda's reputation, not as the death knell for the franchise, but as the beginning of a journey of sorts. Fallout 76 represents the potential of what so many fans, myself included, had been clamoring for years, a shared world Fallout experience, and, in the most basic and lenient of terms, Fallout 76 delivers just that. Has it ever, even once, been of the quality deserving widespread support? No. Can it be? Maybe. And that's the hope its fans hang on to. They bore the brunt of Bethesda's antics, the game-breaking glitches and updates, the disgusting monetization practices, frequently adjusting meta, and the relentless trial and error of attempting to play a game while its developer is seemingly still developing it. Through it all, they stuck around and have done nothing but see the potential for this game. It's a vision undoubtedly shared by many of the individual programmers and artists working tirelessly on this game to make it better. The vision of a stable experience akin to other successful MMO lights, other shared world games, but with the signature Fallout grit, humor, aesthetic, and gameplay loop, things that no other franchise can deliver. The hope that Fallout 76 could eventually deliver on that potential diminishes further, as the patience and support of those stalwart fans still playing it was rewarded with this: a $100 annual premium subscription. And no, the subscription isn't required to play the game, but hidden in the language of the supposed benefits of this package, you'll find some fairly damning evidence that the often punishing grind of playing Fallout 76, which was defended for months by Bethesda as being necessary to ensure balance and fairness, can apparently be mitigated after all, so long as you pay for it. No longer is monetization strictly cosmetic or supplemental. For $100 upfront, you can vastly improve your quality of life in-game by means of unlimited junk storage, a placeable tent that acts as a fast travel location, and private servers. Not only have the developers been capable of solving common complaints regarding the game's resource caps and other mechanics, but they've decided to lock those potential fixes behind a paywall, which stands in direct contradiction of their stating that monetization would only ever come in the form of cosmetics and non-gameplay enhancing features. This is your reward, dear Fallout 76 faithful, for all your support. This is the company now, before the fulfillment of the long-awaited Wastelanders update no less, which would bring voiced human NPCs to the game. They just had to remind you what's really important to them. Not your contentment or continued enjoyment of their product, but your money. Bethesda has taken the unfettered, toxic business practices that Fallout was meant to satirize and implemented it into their own business model. One hesitates to speculate the future of the company, but these are clear and present signs of a company out of touch with its user base, among other things. Things like a steady decline into irrelevance, seeing as Bethesda is falling into the same hole that companies like EA and Activision have spent the last few years clawing their way out of. You see, catastrophic negative PR in gaming is nothing new. In late 2017, Star Wars Battlefront 2 and its monetization-dependent progression system was widely criticized, marking a landmark shift in public opinion regarding loot boxes and monetization as a whole. The dialogue on recurring in-game purchases was changed forever. Suddenly, a line was being drawn in the sand by the consumer. Regardless of whether or not Battlefront 2 was even the worst offender, it released at just the right time and in just the right way, that it became the linchpin for change in the industry. By the time Fallout 76 came out, its principal infractions were particularly baffling, as the consumers had just spent the previous 12 months shining a light on the worst aspects of other major publishers, aspects that Bethesda was now adopting. These were considered lessons learned at this point. This, again, is where Bethesda's insular nature worked to their detriment. People have been voicing their concerns for years about Bethesda recycling assets, the creation engine, suspect behavior with their creation club, re-releasing hardly remastered titles, focusing on mobile, and a general lack of transparency. The last time a Bethesda title really pushed boundaries was Skyrim, all the way back in 2011. And the sentiment toward Fallout 4 today leans more toward competent, but lacking where other Fallout titles succeeded. In the years since Fallout 4, all eyes and ears were on the future, particularly the rumored Starfield. What we got, however, was an afterthought. Every lingering concern, normally buried in a mountain of praise, was separated and compiled into one steaming disappointment of a game. Not only was Fallout 76 a disaster, it was derivative, ugly, broken, empty, and lacked any of the spirit that granted previous titles in the franchise unprecedented longevity and goodwill despite their flaws. 76 was an ugly amalgamation of market research and recycled assets, of bad ideas from reviled companies. Most disappointing, however, was the confirmation that a company beloved the world over had fallen in line with the likes of EA and Activision. The tragedy of Fallout 76 isn't the product itself, though make no mistake, it is tragic. No, the real tragedy is the loss of faith by one of the most fervently supportive and forgiving fan bases in gaming. It's that Bethesda at one point wasn't the internet punching bag that it's become. We're left wondering, as we often are after an IP turns sour, what could have been. A shared world Fallout experience isn't an idea to give up on. As it stands, however, in its current playable state, in its current graphical state, the way it's been marketed, how the information regarding updates and intentions has been disseminated, how despite the very loud and near universal backlash to their consistently tone-deaf decision-making doesn't seem to alter their present course of action, it seems that for the time being, Fallout and Bethesda aren't worth supporting. An exorbitantly priced season pass is nothing new, nor is a Bethesda game with bugs, but selling us garbage and charging us to make it smell less offensive is where we should draw the line. Do not buy this premium pass, especially if reports are true that the scrap box deletes your items and private servers aren't actually private. But if you do, the monthly allotment of 1,600 atoms can finally afford you the postman outfit from the Atom Shop. You know, the mid-20th century take on one of America's most ubiquitous government workers, complete with postman hat, slacks, jacket, and one canvas bag. Well guys, that's all I feel like ranting about today, so be sure to like and share the video, subscribe for more content, and click that bell to get notified when new videos are released. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. Until next time.